Imagine a man who has mastered every text available to him. He sits elevated on a raised chair, physically surrounded by the sheer weight of his accumulated knowledge, dispensing wisdom to a room full of disciples. A stranger walks into the room. He ignores the raised chair, sits flat on the floor, and asks the scholar a question. It has nothing to do with facts, memorization, or texts. The stranger asks a question that dismantles the scholar's entire worldview. Looking at this diagram, we see the exact metaphor the stranger was probing. On the left is a highly knowledgeable but spiritually shallow person. They are a small bowl. The moment knowledge is poured in, they fill to the brim and loudly overflow. The overflow is the sound of their own limits. On the right is a limitless master. They are an ocean. No amount of pouring produces an overflow because the depth is infinite. The water level never rises. The capacity simply absorbs it. That encounter between Rumi and Shams al-Tabrizi sets the framework for Mir Ali Shah's reflections on the 13th Discourse of Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani's Jala al-Khawath. We have a modern instinct to measure our spiritual progress by gathering external data. We count the books we read, the rituals we complete, and the influence we hold. The Sheikh's teaching forces us to ask a different question. How much of the world has to leave your heart before it becomes big enough to hold the divine? If you accumulate data without expanding the vessel, the Sheikh warns you will become what he calls sons of Babel. These are people holding composed knowledge that lives entirely on fragile pages. If the lamp goes out or the book burns, they have nothing left. Real lived knowledge carries its flint and fuel inside the heart, so that even in total darkness, a light turns on. Gathering spiritual content without first expanding your internal capacity does not produce inward transformation. It simply generates outward noise. To build that capacity, you have to lose what the text calls the shell of existence. This is the hardened crust of ordinary social customs. It is the reflex habit that makes us react, want, and judge exactly like everyone else around us. That crust has to be aggressively stripped away. In its place comes Istilam. We often translate this simply as Islam, but its reality is a silent, active, submissive obedience. It is the continuous internal whisper of, "I am no longer my own," running underneath every single action you take. Raising your hands to begin a prayer is an outward physical gesture. If the heart inside the chest has not actually surrendered its autonomy, the physical movement is hollow. It is merely the shape of prayer, missing the invisible reality that gives it life. This graphic maps exactly how the divine tests our progress. When we lay claim to a virtue, we expect to be handed an easy opportunity to prove it. Instead, the test is delivered through its exact opposite. The person who loudly announces their patience will be handed circumstances designed to enrage them. The person who prides themselves on generosity will be forced into a scenario where giving away their wealth genuinely hurts. The divine uses opposing forces to forcibly shatter unearned arrogance. The ego must be hollowed out, sometimes painfully, to make room for actual, tested truth. The text compares a wild animal. Left alone, it grows into an adult beast that no one can ride. It must be actively trained to carry you and your heavy equipment through the harsh wastelands of this path. You cannot approach this training in binaries. If you completely starve the ego, it snaps. If you indulge it, the animal runs away with the rider entirely. You have to apply proportional pressure in graduated increments while the animal is still small. Every year that passes with an untrained lower self allows it to solidify, making the eventual training severely painful. Once that internal discipline begins to take hold, the emotional weather of the seeker changes. There is a widespread modern assumption that true spirituality guarantees chronic cheerfulness. The Sheikh's tradition makes no such promise. The mature believer experiences long periods of sadness. This is not clinical depression. It is a profound, sobering awareness. They see the exact state of their own heart. They see the struggles of their community, and they recognize the massive gap between what they currently are and what they are invited to become. Spiritual expansion does not magically make life lighter. It grounds you with the permanent weight of knowing exactly what is at stake. As the heart expands, a specific behavioral trait emerges, Zud, or true detachment. A person reaches a state of complete inner sufficiency, where they entirely stop demanding validation, wealth, or attention from other people. This creates a strange paradox. When you stop needing an audience, you become magnetically trustworthy. We naturally pull away from those who want something from us, and we lean toward those who are inwardly indifferent to whether we are listening at all. This scale illustrates a devastating reality of spiritual mathematics. The Sheikh states that 2 cycles of prayer performed by a heart purified of hypocrisy heavily outweigh 1,000 cycles performed by someone acting for their own reputation. In this economy, your impact is dictated entirely by the internal purity of your vessel. Quantitative accumulation without a clean heart is just empty arithmetic. The ultimate goal of this path is found in a single Quranic word used to describe the prophets, mubin. We often translate this as a clear warner, but the text expands this into a physical image. It means transparent, perfectly clear glass. This animation shows the optical reality of imperfections. If a pane of glass has scratches, bubbles, or a colored tint, it will inevitably refract the light passing through it. The light that exits on the other side carries the flaws of the glass itself. This maps directly onto the human soul. Our unresolved wounds, our daily fears, and our ambitions act as a tint. The divine light hits us and bends to our flaws. The spiritual work is ensuring the glass is slowly polished until those tints vanish, allowing the light to pass straight through. You can spend your life hoarding gold coins for their own sake, but the text warns these hoards shed their disguise and turn into the biting scorpions of anxiety they always truly were. The alternative is the quiet, lifelong work of polishing the glass. The final measure of spiritual maturity is not acquiring enough knowledge to shine brilliantly for others to see. It is expanding your capacity and cleaning your heart until you become completely invisible, so that the light passing through you is finally just the light.